Every family member of mine, including myself, has had an encounter with the paranormal or supernatural at one point in their lives. From the little people that kept my great-aunt company as she lay dying in a hospital bed, to myself making successful contact with something through a Ouija board. But this I don't have an explanation for. Even as someone who believes in these things, I always try to ration the mundane over the magical. However, after delving into learning more about a certain mythological cryptid, I can only come to one conclusion surrounding my mother's passing. In the spring of this year, I used to live in the mountains in Northern California with my mom, who was a single mother, and the place we stayed at was a house that was owned by my aunt. It was a historical house with well over 200 years of history on the property, and being built and altered through the decades. This house was situated in the thick of the wooded mountain. And forest stretched for miles beyond. In the front was a wall about 3 feet high, and on the top was a hill that inclined upwards. Back some 10 yards of grass that terminated at a fence. Beyond that was just woods and a small hiking trail. When we moved into this house, I was just starting first grade, and what I'm about to tell you of has been happening regularly until we moved out when I was in middle school. My mom was also deeply spiritual and also believed in the supernatural, though I don't think she knew what she had possibly encountered. When I was sent off to school, my mom stayed back at the house to do paperwork for an ongoing custody battle. When she was alone, or when I was out of sight, was when it started happening. She would hear my voice shouting for her from the front yard, yet she knew that I wasn't home at that time, nor would I have been. The first few times it happened, she wrote it off as her hearing things, as she is hard of hearing in one ear. The longer we lived there, the more seemingly uncomfortable things we would feel or experience. I had never liked that house. I always felt like I was being watched, in one way or another, especially outside, coming from just beyond the property fence. A few times she was with some family out on the back porch that overlooked some sparse patches of forest in the valley. She would invite them over when I was at school still, so she can focus on relaxing. That's when she heard my voice again, calling to her from the wooded patch. This time, her friends also heard it. Confused, they asked my mom, shouldn't I have been at school at that time? And why was I playing outside in the woods? I wasn't. And she told them that. At the same time, around the time that my mom supposedly heard my voice, a foul smell would linger around the property. When I would come home or find my mom if I was off inside the house, my mom would keep asking me if I was really at school today, and I didn't just skip school. I always answered honestly that I was at school. The most vivid memory that my mom had of an encounter with an unwelcome friend on or around our property was one night in 2014 when I was in 4th grade. A magnitude 6 earthquake hit an adjacent county. Our property was very close to that county, and she was literally shaken awake. Note, the bedroom we were sleeping in had the bed right next to the sliding glass door that faced to the backyard. She tried to wake me up, but I was a heavy sleeper. Then, she smelt that foul scent again 2 yellow eyes in our backyard caught her eye as she stared at this intruder in our backyard. The aftershock hit. Thankfully, we were far away from the epicenter, that the only damage done to the property was a crack in the tiles of the backyard deck, and also along the floor surrounding a pool we had. Another incident was that we used to keep chickens for eggs for a few months. We had the family handyman build an automatic closing coop so that the door would close just before sunset to keep the chickens safe from mountain lions and other things that would eat chickens, along with a metal fence, not the chicken wire kind, but the heavy-duty ones that are used in construction sites. Coop on all sides, including the top, to keep out the mountain lions, since a few were recently spotted in a nearby regional park. This was something that came from my own memory. At first, it was just one chicken that ended up drowned at the bottom of our pool. After that, we put a padlock on the gate to the coop. Then, one late morning, I was out hunting for frogs in the pool filter when I saw my aunt, mom, and handyman, the same one that built the coop, looked at the coop shocked and worried. The metal fencing of the coop on one side had been completely ripped open, and inside the coop was a bloodbath. I came to take a closer look at the scene when I heard the handyman say, "I'm not sure this was a mountain lion. None of the chicken are eaten or missing. Their heads are all severed, and a mountain lion would have eaten these. They don't hunt and kill for fun." We also had no neighbors or people for at least a few miles that could have played this prank on us. And the thing I remembered most was not the dismembered chickens, but the smell of rotting flesh, even though the chickens looked like they were just killed the night before. Looking back, it felt like we were being taunted by this thing. Or at least, my mom was for some reason. When we still lived at that house, and even after we moved, misfortune followed us wherever we went. My mom got into a 5-year-long abusive relationship and developed breast cancer when I was in high school. She was a very healthy woman with no family history of breast cancer, and it would go away and come back just when she thought she was done with the chemo treatment and all of that. I had, at some point in my teens, gotten into cryptids, and specifically Native American folklore. If what I assume about her experiences are correct, I have heard that even if you evade death by the Wendigo, it will find another way to kill you. Doctors she would visit would express confusion as she was low risk in getting breast cancer, let alone having it keep coming back since I caught it early the first time. Though we had long left that house, it felt like the memories, the fear, it was always following her. In her last months alive, when I was with her, she said she kept having dreams of that old house, of my voice from beyond the woods, beckoning for her to come. Dreams about a thing that looked like a man, but wasn't exactly, bearing the same yellow glowing eyes she saw outside the night of the earthquake. She felt as if these reoccurring dreams were trying to tell her something. She had hoped it was something good and not malevolent. In fact, it did have my voice after all. Last year in the fires, the house burnt down, and this year in the spring, my mom passed away. Looking back, it feels like the pieces fit together for this. Everything from her diagnosis to how her cancer behaved felt so off. It could be that she was cursed by this thing, Or maybe there was no supernatural explanation, but it still lingers in the back of my mind.